All right, in this video, I want to go over timeline editing and video in Adobe Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by showing you a little segment of a larger video that I did. I'm going to play this for you and you'll see it's 4 or 5 small little scenes. The first scene is what you're looking at right here, where you've got some people walking. Then you got a family that appears to be walking slightly across the screen. It's actually a still that's overlaying it. Then we get into the next scene, which is a static photo of a plane that's supposed to be taking off. That's the video clip that I'm going to reinterpret as a video clip in this video. Let me just play this for you and you'll see what I'm talking about. So that's it. That's the entire little video. Let me go back to the beginning and let me just sort of scroll into this. This is the scene right here. Picture's great. The problem is it's a static picture. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to demonstrate how to use Photoshop to turn this into an actual movie clip and then insert that movie clip into the timeline of the video that I just showed you. I hope you enjoy it, so here we go. We'll give it a try and we'll see how this goes. Alright, so the first step in turning this piece of static art, which is a bitmap, into a motion graphic, a movie clip, is to separate the elements of the piece of art. So what that means essentially is I'm going to end up with a sky and the plane on its separate layer, and then there's going to be a foreground image of this plane and that, I guess it's a bank next to a runway and the river. So the river, bank, and this plane is going to be on its own unique layer. This will be on its own layer, and the sky will be a sky. And then I will be able to animate these 3 elements together and create a video. So right now this is a JPEG. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go File, Save As. Save it as a takeoff. Save it as, that's the name's okay. Photoshop, and hit Save. And hit Yes. All right, and then the second thing I want to do is I want to duplicate the background layer. So I'm going to duplicate the background layer. I'm going to call this Takeoff. All right, so my background layer, I'm going to leave that named background, no problem. Takeoff is going to be the plane. And then after I get the plane separated out and the sky cleaned up, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to duplicate this plane and this bottom area on a layer above it so that then I can run the plane between that area of the image and the background. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. All right, so I'm going to zoom in on this plane a little bit so I can get a better look at it, and I can come in here and I can begin the process of extracting it. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool. That's about the size I'm using. If I use my fancy brackets, I can increase the size of this. So I use the fancy bracket to increase the size of my selection area, and I'm just going to run across this plane and I'm going to try to get it as quickly selected as I can. Not bad. Did a pretty good job overall. Let me see. Let me go across here and check it all out, make sure I'm good. Could go a little further there, even a little further there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so basically this is all selected. The wheels aren't. I'm going to click on the wheels to select them. Let me click in here, see if I can get that selected just a slight bit better. There we go. And I'm going to decrease the size of this so I can put it in there and get that wheel. So now I have the wheels selected, all the wheels selected. The only thing I don't have selected are a couple of little spots, like right here, right here, right here, and there, and some area on the tail and that back wing. I'm going to use the Polygon Lasso tool to do that. But before I do, I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer so I can even get a better look at this. All right, so at Polygon Lasso tool, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just quickly, and you don't have to be crazy perfect with this, because this is going to be a motion graphic in the end, and you're probably not going to be able to spend an awful long time watching this whole thing. So it has to be convincing. Yes, there we go. But you don't have to be absolutely perfect. So I'm going to come in here, and again, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click and work my way up around the tail of this plane. I want to get a relatively clean edge on the tail of that plane. I can do it in one shot just like that. And there that is. Okay. And now there's like 3 little areas over here that I have to check on and get. All right, so I want to come over here, hold down the Shift key, and I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to grab that little piece of a wing or whatever it is. I'm not exactly sure just what it is. There we go. And this is the tip of the other wing, yes, so I'm going to get that as well. And I'm just holding the Shift key down, adding to the selection. Okay, and I am almost done with that. Okay, good. And I think there's a little spot right there that I think I'll get as well. I'll hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to grab this little piece here. Again, just trying to make it look good. And I think that'll do it. Let me take a look and see. Let me just check. Oh, there's one more little spot I think I should get right there. That's a spot I should also get. Shift, and then just draw this little area around it. Like that. There. And let's go View, Fit on Screen. And there's my selection. Again, it's not a perfect selection, but believe me when I tell you, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to move. So in this particular case, it's going to be more than good enough. All right, so I'm on the takeoff layer right now. And what I want to do is I want to come down here and I want to create a mask. All right, from the selection. So I click on the mask, and immediately I get a mask. Now watch what happens when I hide the background layer. I have a beautifully silhouetted plane. All right? So now I'm in business. But here's the problem. The plane still is up in the sky, and see, this plane is in front of the other plane. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to, in the end, I want to be able to get rid of this plane, and I want to be able to put this plane behind this plane. And it's not that difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down out of the way here, and I'm going to first come into my background layer, and I'm going to use my patch tool, all right? And I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to draw a circular area around part of the plane with the patch tool, drag it over to my clear sky area, let go, and a good bit of that sky is gone, but it's not completely gone. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to draw more of that sky with that patch tool and come over to the sky area. Yeah, I'm going to have a little trouble with this one because, yeah, see, it's too big. But that's all right. I'll fix it. Come over here and grab this like this. And now I think I can get rid of that. Yeah, bring that over to the sky area. Boom. There it is. And now that's gone. I see a little bit of a spot right there. I'll fix that. Okay. Select, deselect. Okay, Command D. All right, so now what do I have? I have a background that has no plane in it. And on my plane layer here, on my above layer, I have my plane. So I'm in pretty decent shape. What I need to do now is I need to duplicate the background layer once more. And then this one I'm going to move up all the way to the top. And I'm going to use the same basic process to select this plane down here. Come in here with the quick selection tool, and I can maybe make it a little bit bigger by hitting the fancy bracket. And I'm going to start dragging, and I'm going to click and select that whole plane, make it a little bit smaller. Oops, wrong one. There we go. And there we go. Perfect. And let's see what else. We're going to go this way here, this way here. Get all of that. Pretty good. Okay. I didn't get that. All right, so basically, we're in pretty good shape. This looks like it's pretty much the way I need it to be. There's a little bit of run over out here, but you know what? That's not a big problem because the plane is going to be off the ground and up here somewhere by that point, so I ain't worried about it too much. So the basic body of this plane has been selected. But what I do want to do is I want to get these wings. So now I'm going to, again, zoom in. And let's move it over a little bit. Come over here and get the Polygon Lasso tool. Hold the Shift key down. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to carefully grab that wing. Like that. And then come back to here like that. And then I'm going to come around this piece of the wing like that. And then over to here. And there's my wing. And again, I don't really even have to do that because it's not going to ever get near it, but I'm just trying to make this look like it. I'm trying to do it in a way that it makes more sense to you. Hold the Shift key down, come to the end of the wing like that, and then over to here like that. There we go. Down a little bit, and then over to here, and then close it off. There we go. And now do the last part of the wing just like this, all the way out to here. And then all the way out to the end, and then I'm just going to come all the way back to here. I ain't worried about that little overhang thing. That I don't care about that much. Nobody's going to notice that really. Come up like this. Okay, come over to here, and then down to here. By this point, the plane is going to be up in the air. You're not going to see it. And then over to here, and then close it. There. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now what we need to do is, let's go view, fit artboard and window, or fit in the screen. There we go. Let me go view, zoom out a little bit. Zoom out. There we go. All right. Now what I need to do is I need to get the runway. So I am going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm with the Polygon Lasso tool again. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to run all the way across here because that's the runway. That's the runway. And then I'm just going to come down to the bottom, across the bottom, and up like that. Okay, and now I've selected that whole bottom area. And I'm on that background layer. I'm going to call this foreground. Foreground. And I'm going to mask the foreground. There. And now that's masked. So watch what happens when I hide the background. That's what I have. I got my plane and my bottom. Now, because that is above the plane, watch what happens when I click on the plane and I move the plane down. Look at this. Isn't that great? The plane is now behind the other plane. Okay? So I have my plane on its own layer, and I have my foreground and my background, which I'm going to bring back. Okay? And I'm all ready to do this animation. So in the next video, I will show you how to do the animation. So after we take this bitmap apart, we end up with our 3 layers here. Background, which actually I see this says layer 1. Let me just change that background. So we have background, we have our plane layer, and we have our foreground layer. What I want to do is I want to get rid of this mask. So I just want that plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the control or command, I guess it's command control, click, and I get that dancing ants, which is my selection now is activated, making sure I'm choosing that picture right there. I'm going to go layer, new, layer via copy. And I end up with a new layer called layer number 1. This layer I no longer need, so I'm going to throw this away. And now I have basically the same thing. I have the foreground, they're right here, the background, and I have this plane. Now, I'm going to call this takeoff. Okay, so now I have takeoff. And again, if you watch I hide the background, you can see that that plane is up there. It's doing the same thing that, okay, except now it's just basically a bitmap section of that plane. The mask is gone. And the reason I do that is it's easier to animate this way. That's the only reason I want to do it. All right, so let me bring my layers back, all my layers back. Okay, so I got all my layers back. I'm on the takeoff layer. Before I bring the timeline out and I do this timeline animation, there's one little thing I want to do, and that is I want to make this plane look like it's taking off. Right now, it looks like it's sitting on the ground, and that's not what I want. So making sure the takeoff layer is selected, I'm going to go Edit, transform, rotate. Then I'm just going to take this thing, and notice when you come to the corner here, you get the curved arrows. I'm just going to rotate that ever so slightly. It doesn't have to be more than that. Yeah, that's good. Doesn't have to be any more than that. Now it looks like the plane is taking off. I'm all ready to do the animation. This is a very simple animation. It will replace a static image that I'm using in my other production, which I think will make the other production look pretty cool. So that's why we're doing this. Go to the window menu and go down to where it says timeline, and I bring my timeline out. I like to put my timeline down at the bottom because it resembles the other applications, After Effects, Premiere, and Adobe Flash. It resembles these other animation programs. I like to keep that consistent look. So the first thing I do is I click on Create Frame Animation, and now I have a frame animation, but I'm not going to be doing a frame animation. I want to do a timeline video animation, which is what I'm sitting on right now. And by clicking that, I now get a timeline video animation set up. And there is my 3 layers. I got 3 layers set up for this. And what I want to do is I want to drag this thing out till I get 5 seconds. Let's see if I can get 5 seconds out of this. I'm just going to drag this out. Now these are static images. So I can pretty much make these static images as long as I want because they're static images. And I'm going to be the one that's going to be doing the animating on them. Basically, I'm using 5 seconds because I've made a determination from measuring the space that I have available in the timeline from my other animation where I'm going to be using this, that it requires at least 5 seconds. So it's all kind of like I know what I'm doing in advance, and I'm not just doing this arbitrarily. But I can stretch this out as long as I want, and I'm going to stretch it out until I get 5 seconds. And I guess I got to do it in bits because it's just being very stubborn. Let me just keep going. I'm around 340, I think, right now, so I'm getting close. Let me just scroll that over a little bit. I think I might be able to get 5 out of this. Let's see. So we're at 440. 4, go a little bit more. Let's get it to 5. Oh, 47, 59, and 5. There we go. There's 5. That's close enough. It'll be easy now because I'll just snap it to 5. So I have my 3 layers, all 3 of them are set to 5 seconds. All right, now I'm going to bring this down to this smaller size. So here you can see you got 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Okay, the important thing to understand is the foreground and the background are not going to animate at all. They're just basically going to sit there and you're not going to do a thing with them. The only animation is this plane, which is going to fly. Let me get this selected. This plane is just going to fly across the sky. That's what it's going to do. So what I want to do here is I want to, first of all, I want to open up the takeoff layer, which is what I've named this plane. I've named that layer to takeoff. And I want you to notice that you have position, opacity, and style. Those are the 3 keyframing effects that I can apply to this. So I'm going to be using position. So what I want to do is I want to come over to, say, oh, I don't know, let's make it around, not quite, a little bit beyond 1 second. I'm going to go close to, let's see where I'm at here, if I can figure it out. Down here, let's see, 115. Let's go to 120. Okay, so right there. That's good. See, 120. So I'm at 1 second and 20 frames. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on position. And now I have a keyframe. So what that means basically is I have my first marker for where my plane is going to be. And the plane is going to be off screen at that point. So all I'm going to do is take that plane and I'm going to drag that plane until it goes off screen right over here somewhere. Let's see where I'm at. I want it to be off like about that. There we go. So it's actually off screen at that point. Now it's going to come up pretty quick. So let's go to, there's 2. Let's go to, I don't even want to reach 3. I think I want this thing to be pretty quick. I want it to go pretty quick across there. I want it to just zoom right across there. Not ridiculously quick. And see, the important thing is, watch. Let me just actually do this effect. So I'm going to take this thing now and I'm going to try. It doesn't matter that the thing's jumping all over the place. It's going to go straight across. That's all it's going to do. It's going to go straight across. Now watch, when I go to my, I'll move this back to the first keyframe, all right? And I start moving this, see what it does? It flies right across. See that? Isn't that great? The other thing that you have to understand is these keyframes are very flexible. So if it turned out that, and I got to be very careful playing this because I have Camtasia recording this. So if I am not careful, I could freeze my computer up because there's too many things running at one time. So I got to be very careful about this. I can't actually demonstrate this, but what I've done is I've set up my recording so that I can show you what this thing looks like after I tweak it and get it the way I want it, and I export it. And you export it over here, and I'll talk about that in just one second. But the keyframes, basically what I can do with these keyframes is I can click on any keyframe and I can move that keyframe anytime I want. So if I want this thing to be longer, I can move it longer. If I want it to be shorter, I can make it shorter. I had it somewhere around there, so I'm going to leave it there. If I hold down the Shift key, I can now select both keyframes and I can drag both keyframes together if I wanted to, like say for instance, I wanted this to happen sooner. I can move both of them together, keeping that relationship between the keyframes, but just making it happen sooner. So let's move it back to about there. So that's really all you need to know about this. It's really simple, and you can scrub this or you can play this by clicking here and playing this. Again, I don't want to do that because the last time I was trying to record this thing and I did these things, the computer locked up on me because I got, if you look up here, I got Camtasia recording and I have this thing going, so I got to be very careful. All right, so we're basically ready to go. I'm going to export this thing as an MP4, which is what I'm going to use in the replacement of the bitmap from the other video. So I click here and it's going to come out as Takeoff for Video MP4, and the selected folder I have is simply my desktop. I'm using the format of H.264. I'm going high quality, and I have the document size set up to be 1920 by 1008. I have a document frame rate set of 30 frames per second. So just so that you know, this is what I'm running this on, and there's an end frame of 9027. So this is going to be, in the end, something I'm going to put on YouTube. So I know that these settings are basically the settings that I want for that. If I were to hit render right now, it would render this video. If I did that though, it would lock up. So I'm going to cancel this. But that's what I would do. I'd hit render and it would render this video. It would take a few moments to render the video. I'd end up with an MP4. That's the whole thing. See right there, MP4, which is what I'm working with, all right? I'm going to hit cancel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here into my movies. And actually, let me go here and let me go to flight animation, and let's go to the exercise and animation takeoff. That is the one I believe I want. Let me open it up. Here it goes. And here is the animation. You're probably going to, there we go. There's the animation. That's all there is to that. That's the animation. Now I'll play it one more time for you so you can see it smoothly. That's the animation. Okay? Really cool, really simple. Now again, I tweaked this a little bit and I got it taking off just the way I wanted taking off. That is it. That's all there is to doing this. It's very simple. So now that we have put together our little clip, I want to show you how we go about inserting the clip into another project. So this is the project that I worked on. I'm going to just scroll through this a little bit. If I can get this thing to scroll, there we go. So you're going to see me moving across this section of the clip, and I have a background image of people walking, and then I've got in the foreground a family moving towards plane. It fades, and then I'm into my takeoff. Now notice this takeoff is the still image. So this is what we want to replace with our motion graphic that we created. All right, so it's very important that you kind of understand, here's where we're working, right here. Now, it's actually a lot easier to do this than you might think. If you take a look here, there's my takeoff, and there's hop on that plane. And if you take a look, the still image I'm calling takeoff, and the other I'm calling hop on a plane, that's that line hop on a plane. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that my keyframe indicator is at the point where that clip begins, which is right there. It's very important that we do this. Now the other thing is I want to make sure that I also have selected the takeoff layer. So not only do I have the timeline indicator placed right in front of the takeoff layer, but I've also got the takeoff layer selected. The reason I'm doing all this is I want to import that clip that I just created, and I want it to place it right there. Okay? So I'm going to go up to the layer menu. I'm going to go down to video layer and new video layer from file. And I'm going to come up into my flight animation, and I have video segments in here, and what I want is my takeoff animation, which is right there, and I'm going to hit open, and it's going to come in, and there it is. All right, now there is my takeoff animation. Now when I move this, since it's in front of the other takeoff, all right, I'm going to hide that layer. Now I can actually move this thing across the timeline, and I can see how that works. And I see right away that I want that to be a little bit quicker. I want that to happen a little bit quicker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the very beginning here, and I'm going to click on that layer, and I'm going to drag that layer over a little bit to the right. I might have went too far, but let's see. Hop on that plane. Yeah, so there it is. But I'm going to have to move that, so it's actually not too bad right there. Hop on that plane. You can see the plane starting to come through. Hop on that plane. So that's good. That's what I want. And it ends up right where I want it to, which is really good. So I'm going to come to the end of this thing, all right? And I'm going to trim it down. And I'm going to come to the beginning of this thing. And I'm going to trim it down. Okay, so now I have my clip. Here's what it's going to do. It's going to come through like this. Hop on that plane. So that's the first step. Second step is I'm going to select the layer that's hop on that plane, the text. All right, and what I need to do is I need to figure out where I want to place that. So there is my plane as it's coming through. So I want to place that text above it. So I'm going to make sure I have the selection tool, and I'm simply going to move that text up until it reaches right about there. Now when I bring this thing on through, the text comes in, hop on that plane, and zoop, the plane goes right underneath it beautifully. Now this layer right here, the takeoff layer, can be thrown away because it's no longer a layer that I'm using. And guess what? That's it. I mean, I've actually finished this. This composition is literally done. It's all done. The only thing that I might do, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that it could probably be a little bit bigger. Let's go view, zoom out a little bit. I think it probably could go, let's go edit, free transform, and I'm going to convert that into a smart object in order to transform it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to transform this thing by holding down the Shift and the Alt key and just make it a tiny bit bigger to get that. Let me see what we got. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to get the black edges off there. So there you have it. Look, now this is going to come through here, and then it's going to do this, and then it's going to move on. And actually, now that I look at this, it's a little bit close again right at that point. So I'm going to probably move that layer up a little bit further. Probably to right there is pretty good. I think that's probably pretty good. Maybe I'll move it over a tiny bit as well. That's probably pretty good right there. All right, so there it is. It goes from this scene to this scene, and then it goes on from there. And there's my video. That's how you do this. It's very simple, all right? Now, one thing I want to do before I end this little presentation is I want to come into my movies and TV, and I would like to run for you the video so that you can see how the whole thing looks. And you'll see it runs pretty good. The important thing for you to understand is I did this whole thing in Adobe Photoshop. Normally I would do this in After Effects, but I did it in Photoshop because I wanted you to see how nicely Photoshop handles something like this. So let me play this thing for you. I don't know how you feel, but I think this is pretty sweet. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something from this.